Take a trip with us to Nilbog. Just promise not to drink the goo.
Oh my God!
If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will sing the phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow. Whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of two. We're the Plotaholics, ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Plotaholics podcast. I'm Shane Wilson, and I'm joined, as always, by Bryan Tan.
Hey,
no other descriptor needed.
Yeah, that's right. Just, welcome to hell, motherfuckers.
Bryan, this week...
That was way too jovial.
The what?
That was way too jovial for such a proclamation.
You, this week, Mr. Tan, we are discussing Tales from the Hood, a.k.a. the longest visit to Grandpa's house ever.
Oh, come on. Come on.
So Tales from the Hood is an anthology film, right?
Yeah, in the vein of some personal favorites of mine, including Tales from the Dark Side and
Creep Show, right?
Creep Show, Tales from the Dark Side. Even a lot of, I think that show, Amazing Stories, is an anthology series, and so I mean, I'm a big fan of anthology stories.
I like them too, because it's really just like watching a TV show,
right?
Right, like it's easy to break it up. It's like it doesn't feel like you have the same obligation to sit through the whole thing at once.
And you also get different. You can also get different aspects of horror. If certain bits of horror,
or of whatever genre you're working in.
You get different horror genres or different whatever genres. As long as it's an anthology, you can get different aspects of your favorite genre.
Yeah, and it means that you're in for more concise storytelling.
Yes.
Anthologies are tough because you have limited amount of time to establish character and plot, right? And like essentially it's at least in the way that this is orchestrated, like a series of short stories, right? That are connected by theme and genre.
An essential storyteller.
Right, exactly. Like there's a framing device that like sort of helps keep them all in order, or at least within the realm of this particular story.
An aspect of order.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, why don't you slice us off that synopsis here and we'll get into it.
Absolutely. So 3 ne'er-do-wells find their way to Sims's funeral home in search of the shit. What they do not realize is that they are in for far more than just drugs and creepy tales, as the owner of the funeral home, Mr. Sims, has an ulterior motive for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what, I really want to come out right. I want to come out the gates firing on this, if I may.
Mm-hmm, please do.
Obviously, the MVP of this film is Clarence Williams III as Mr. Sims, aka Link Hayes from the Mod Squad.
Yeah.
He is so brilliant.
He's very good.
And this is the second time we've had Mr. Williams III on our show. He was in I'm Gonna Get You Sucker as the head of the Black Power movement that Keenan Ivory Wayans' character went to, and he was actually married to Jan Brady. Where he's like, he was like, we need to save our community. Yes! Yeah, it's time to take the fight to Mr. Big. Yes! Brother, will you help me? Oh, well,
You said this is the second time we've had him?
This is the second time that I recall we've had Clarence Williams.
Because I see him as this is being the fourth time.
Oh, okay. What was the first?
He was in Purple Rain.
Yes, he was in Purple Rain as Prince's dad. You're right.
And he was also in Half Baked.
All right, so we have a Connect Four.
We have
Clarence Williams
classic Connect Four
of Clarence Williams III. I feel so horrible. Wow, how did I do this? That just lets you know how much this guy has been in so many things.
Oh, man. You know what? Actually, no, we've got a bingo. He was also in Life.
Holy crap! Yes, he was. We got a bingo. You know what? One of my favorite YouTubers is Prim's Hood Cinema. Clarence Williams III is what Prim on Prim's Hood Cinema would call a black all-star.
Yeah.
He's a hood all-star. And because he's so creepy and scary. He really is. Because like even from like the moment, like even from the opening credits, where we're getting, because I'm always freaked out by organs. Organs freak me out.
That is a fair point. That is a notoriously creepy instrument.
And and I know he's probably not really playing it.
Right.
But it's just the fact that anytime there is a character playing an organ, they are instantly evil.
Well, there's something to be said, I think, for character design on Mr. Sims.
Yes. I mean,
and just the way he's filmed as well. He's always filmed really up close.
Yeah.
So like his face fills up the frame, and he's making this eye contact. It's very intense.
It's almost like
he's designed to be unsettling, right?
Yeah, because it's the same reason why I had that creepy feeling watching Shallow Hal. Right. Those up close shots. Yeah. They invade your space.
Yeah, that's it. And that is the purpose here. And Tales from the Hood is through its anthology, it touches on so many kinds of horror, right? There's like there's like a lot of body horror, right? With the way that like disfigurations and things like that. There's like the living dead, or like the monster the monster in the house, right? There's the possessed doll.
Oh God, I hate dolls.
There's the psychological horror, like that final story is sort of akin to like Clockwork Orange almost.
It really is. It's literally Black Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, and it's like attempts to rehabilitate through essentially torture.
Right, but it's also a lot of social commentary.
Right,
that's still very relevant to this day. So.
What is interesting to me about Tales from the Hood, which again I had never seen before this watch through, is we talk often. I mean, every Halloween when we start getting into these movies, we talk about how horror, sci-fi is also like this. Horror is uniquely positioned to comment on social issues.
Yes,
and often does, right? Like Jordan Peele is doing a lot of that work in contemporary horror cinema.
Absolutely.
But traditionally it's been like that. But traditionally it also isn't this heavy-handed. Like it's much more allegorical, but this puts it like right front and center.
It is not hiding from what it's doing.
It's impossible to ignore its social commentary.
This is also filmmaker Rusty Cundieff's motif. Because a lot of his films do that.
It also makes a ton of sense that Spike Lee is attached to this.
Absolutely. Rusty Cundieff is, for one, he's a comedic black actor and filmmaker. He was attached to Robert Townsend and Keenan Ivory Wayans in that 80s crew. We've never done Hollywood Shuffle, I don't believe, but I know that I've talked to you about it and told you that you really needed to watch it. Rusty Cundieff is in that, and Hollywood Shuffle is another film where it's not so much an anthology, but it feels like it. Like there's a central story, but a lot of the additional stories are sort of in the lead character's imagination, attempting to be taken seriously as a black actor in Hollywood in the 80s. And Rusty Cundieff was very, very involved in that film. But there's a lot of films that Rusty Cundieff has done that are, indie gems that you've really got to find, especially indie black cinema. I remember he had this film called Sprung, which it does not shy away from the rom-com and sort of negative stereotypes in the black culture toward women.
He also did Tales from the Hood 2
and 3.
He's, I mean, yeah, I guess. This is his acting filmography that I'm looking at.
But
I will say also, yeah, there it is. That he was also the main, if not only, director of Chapelle Show.
Yes, he was the primary director of Chapelle Show. Rusty Cundieff is one of those guys that you don't know that you know him.
Right.
He's that guy that he's behind the scenes, and he's so talented with what he does. He don't really need to be in front of the camera. He's just that good.
Like, he has a clear voice,
right?
Even if you don't see him.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And this film, and I assume the other two of the series, are similar. Why so many?
They are and they aren't.
Why so many years between Tales from the Hood 1 and Tales from the Hood 2?
Only thing that I can guess is that A, funding, B, I think that, and I don't know Rusty Cundieff. I have not read any interviews up to the why. I would only think that the reasons why is
23
social.
years, right?
I believe it's a social thing. I believe it's social because you saw in when this first one came out in 1995, the black community was dealing heavy-handed with the racist moniker of black on black crime. So when you look at the overarching story of the first Tales from the Hood, it involves black on black crime is at the center. Tales from the Hood 2, the story is being told to he's a racist white CEO of for-profit prisons that's trying to create. He's essentially trying to create RoboCop. He's trying to create an AI street patrol, and the third one kind of deviates a little. It deviates a good bit from the formula of the first two, where I'm sure, as you see there, Tony Todd has a lead role in Tales from the Hood 3. And it's a lot more in the vein of Tales from the Dark Side in a lot of the ways, or Twilight Zone.
You're right.
Where only this time it's like Tony Todd has a young child, and the child is telling Tony Todd stories. So Tales from the Hood 3 in a lot of ways reminds me of Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, where you had Deborah Harry with a young Matthew Lawrence telling her stories. That's what you get from Tales from the Hood 3. So I believe that the first two, Mr. Cundieff, is, it's what's really prominent that faces something within the black community, where the third one is more of a straight up horror movie, if that makes sense.
The third one was also released in 2020 October, and it was released to Sci-Fi, probably a result of the pandemic shutting everything down.
Yeah,
it could have also been a Sci-Fi original. I actually don't know.
I'm not 100% sure, but I know that
I can't find anything about that.
But all three films are currently on Peacock, so I would definitely check them out. And honestly, I enjoyed Tales from the Hood 3 way more, in a lot of ways, more than the first one. Like, the first one's always going to have a place in my heart because it's the first one. But I think that Tales from the Hood 3 is a much more concise story. And it's a lot scarier.
I'll also say we'll just give Keith David some flowers here, just because he played Mr. Sims in the second one. I love Keith David, good, and a great choice to pick up that role too.
Absolutely. We lost Clarence Williams III in the mid-2000s. So yeah, Keith David took over the role as Mr. Sims. And he really sort of captured the essence of Mr. Sims as a character. Dude, Keith David is so scary, man. He
can be very intense.
He can be very intense and intimidating. Keith David, of course, we've seen him a few times in The Thing. We've never done The Thing.
No.
Probably should. They Live, which I also don't think we've done.
No.
But we should. He's in both of those.
He's in Community.
He's in Community, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of the original Saints Row game, he's a lead role in Saints Row 1, and he shows up as a guest character in Saints Row 2. Actually, he's in all four of the original Saints Row games, I do believe, where he actually plays himself in the fourth game as the chief of staff to the president.
Yeah, now we have seen him on the show in There's Something About Mary.
Yes, as Mary's dad.
Right.
Which is hilarious. He was also, Shane, the original voice actor for Spawn in the HBO series.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's very good.
I do just taking a gander here. I do think that There's Something About Mary is the only film that we've covered that he's in. Oh, nope. He's in The Replacements.
He is?
Yes.
Who does
he
play?
He plays Lindell.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Huh.
So that's two.
That's two. We're almost there. I don't remember him in
I don't actually remember him either.
I think his role must have been cut. He must have been on the cutting room floor.
That, or just very small, or he was just in a helmet the whole time.
He must have been in a helmet.
He might have been a referee.
Fair enough.
I don't know. Hard to know.
I'm checking out the cast, and I'm not seeing his name. So he must have been. He had to have been just cut. Like his role must have been just ended up on the cutting room floor. That happens. That happens.
But it does happen. Now, regardless, we're not really on that film this week. So
yeah, we're talking about the first one. So in the Welcome to the Mortuary prologue, we see three ne'er-do-wells, as I said. Bulldog, played by Samuel Monroe, the Junior. We done Menace? I don't think we've done Menace to Society, but no. He's in Menace to Society as Eilena's cousin that Kane beats the piss out of. He's also in Don't Be a Menace, playing a parody of his character from Menace to Society. Remember the guy that came, which one of y'all ashtray? He's that guy. So Bulldog, Stack, and Ball. Joe Torre, the brother of Guy Torre, playing Stack. We also had Joe Torre in Poetic Justice, and DeAndre Bonds as Ball. So they're three gangbangers that are on their way to the Sims funeral home to purchase to get some drugs that Mr. Sims called them and said that he found. And while they're in there, they're already nervous being in a funeral home.
They immediately go to the fear place with just the funeral home. They're not down with it. Two of them are vocally frightened about this thing. The other guy's just look, it's just dead people. Let's just get in there and get this shit, right?
The one guy's so high, it's funny. Yeah. If a dead motherfucker try to kill you, you kill him. Well, hold up. How does that even make sense?
Right, yeah, exactly. But they get in there, and this dude just launches into his stories,
Yeah, he opens up a casket. It sounds like he knows they're afraid, so he opens up the casket, shows them a body that's laying in the casket, and we go into the first story, the Rogue Cop Revelation, which shows a black cop and three white cops. The two of the white cops have pulled over a black man, and it's looking like everything that we've seen over the past couple of years with black motorists pulled over by white police officers. And then, of course, the police officers, the white police officers send Clarence, the black police officer, to run the plate and are just beating the shit out of this preacher because we find out in the story that he is on a crusade to rid his local precinct of corruption, which includes the police selling drugs in the community.
Right, because what's happening here is he's he wants to get this out of the community because obviously drugs in the community will have a negative effect on children and further perpetuate sort of the issues in that neighborhood, right? Like,
Right.
it's the police's way of like, not only are they like making money off of these people, but they're also keeping these people down by keeping them high and like out of
Right.
work and all of that.
And then arresting them when they get caught.
Exactly, which is like the oldest trick in the book, right? Like,
yeah, that's essentially what happened in the black communities during the as a response to the rise of the Black Panthers.
right.
And I want to know, how the hell did Clarence not hear them beating this guy's ass? Because it's not like there's necessarily a mute button to Brumman getting his ass whooped.
Well, I mean, and this is sort of, I mean, in any of these stories, there are a number of targets, right? Like, obviously, like the main target here is some combination of, well, the main target here is corrupt police.
Right.
Police that would beat a black man who is innocent of everything. Police that would, plant drugs or sell drugs and then arrest those people. But also black police officers that would look the other way while their white counterparts, or good police officers that would look the other way while their bad counterparts were misbehaving, right? Like,
right.
All of these things are targets in this first story.
Right. And what gets me also is he kind of shows up after the ass whooping is commenced. This guy's Martin Morehouse. And it's like, okay, you saying his name shouldn't matter. Your whole thing should be, I mean, now granted, he is like indignant, but
well, that's the thing, right? Is like the Clarence's whole stance is not, he didn't do anything wrong. His stance is like, that's the district attorney or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the guy you don't mess with.
Right. But it's about his power more than his humanity.
Correct. And so basically these cops beat him up, and then two of the cops take him and they frame him. They inject him with heroin and then drive his car into the river, essentially framing him as a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And they kill him.
Yeah.
And then you see Clarence falls into depression because it's like he could have done something and he didn't. Yeah. So he's hearing Martin Morehouse talking to him from beyond the grave. And of course now Odette's acting like an ass.
Yeah.
But hold on, let me get her. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah. So to pick up with what he's saying, yeah, Clarence hears the voice of Martin Morehouse over the next year talking to him from the grave. He goes into this terrible depression. And then eventually he comes around. He has this, intense vision of Morehouse, who has been crucified in this dream. But in the dream, Morehouse tells Clarence to bring him these other cops, right? Obviously, Clarence has left the force, but he is able to get the cops over to the cemetery on the night of the anniversary of the death. And he, he eventually lures them over to the cemetery, or lures them over to the gravesite.
Yeah.
And then, as he was instructed to do. Go ahead.
Right. And then from there, Martin Morehouse just starts laying it in, grabs a dude by the junk. Now, you want some vengeance when you grab a dude by his still pee.
You pull him into the ground with the junk.
Yeah, while it's
Well,
pee.
he doesn't even pull him into the ground. He pulls him in by his junk and like beats his head against the tombstone or the headstone.
And I you know what? This is definitely one of those instances where you don't feel bad to see people get their comeuppance either. You really don't.
Right.
So Morehouse takes him out in various grisly ways. And of course, one of those cops, did you recognize Funboy from The Crow as one of the cops?
I did not.
Yeah, the one cop, the last cop that he gets, the one that was Clarence's partner, was Funboy.
Gotcha.
And,
I haven't seen The Crow in so long.
Yeah, so he Martin Morehouse just he lights them up like he lights them up like Christmas trees, as they deserve. And then of course Clarence looks at him and goes, "Well, are you satisfied now, brother?" And I love that indignation while he grabs him by the throat. Where were you when I needed you?
Right. And that's it, right? Like, and that's so because these are anthology entries, right? Like, each of them ends up being around like 20 minutes, give or take.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of room for depth or nuance. They're all like pretty much what you see on the surface is what you get,
Right.
which is fine.
Yeah.
This is what you expect from a movie like this. It's
But we also get
heavy-handed.
enough, and we also get enough in those few minutes that we get of character building of who
Right.
these people are. You don't always need a fleshed out backstory. You don't
Absolutely.
have to be Jake Peralta about it.
It's also interesting as a horror film because I believe that only like it's not. I feel like it would be scary. Certain well, like there's frightening aspects to all of the stories, but he has, I think, specific targets with each one.
Right.
And I don't know that they're necessarily meant to be scary or frightening as much as they're meant to say, hey, like if you see yourself in this,
Right.
like that's problematic, right?
Right.
And the second story is, to me, probably the most affecting.
It's very hard to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that Mr. Sims is showing, with all of these stories that he's telling, I think that, like, you're absolutely right. If you see yourself in these characters, but I think it's also
Well, that is like, I feel like the period or the exclamation mark is put on that by the final story, right?
it
Like,
really is. It really is. But it's showing. I feel that each of these stories shows multitudes of things. I think you're absolutely right. It shows us as the viewers, if we see each other in these characters. It also is showing the recipients of these stories in the film. You know what I mean? Different negative aspects. But I really feel like it also shows, because you figure at the time, the only time you saw a lot of black folks in horror movies, they were the stereotypical die first or whatever, or it was blaxploitation films. This is one of the first times in my memory that you see a predominantly black cast in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it showed like this is the film that was the sort of the bedrock for a Jordan Peele.
For sure. Yeah. And I would say that like the anthology approach positions the film uniquely in a way that it can touch on a variety of social issues at once without getting too bogged down in a single issue.
Right. Boys Get Bruised do get bruised. This messed with me because, dude, David Alan Grier was the funny guy in Living Color.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was Antoine Merriweather. He was the straight man in a lot of the other in Living Color sketches. He was Eddie Murphy's guy, his buddy in Boomerang. You know what I mean? He wasn't like, this is one of those times where you see someone who's a comedian really go to a dark place. And I don't think David Alan Grier gets enough credit as an actor, because I'm sorry, Carrot Top, I couldn't have bought in that regard.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, but in this film, in this story, we see a child at a new school who his teacher who's played by writer and director Rusty Cundieff. He's a victim of abuse, and the kid is telling him the monster did it.
Yeah.
And we start to learn that he's also being bullied in school. And one of the little girls in school taught him that if you draw a picture of what scares you, you crumble it up, you destroy it, you'll kill your fear. Which is very interesting. That is a very interesting way of looking at things. And you want to talk about body horror, man.
Yeah, that's sort of, this is the specific thing that I was talking about. So like there are these really, so there's one really amazing moment, like cinematically in this story. Every night the door will open and that claw will like grab inside of the door, and then we go to black. But then after the teacher comes over and talks to his mother and stepfather about this, like the drawing and everything, and that he's been bruised and all of this, like the stepdad's like, I'll talk to him about it, right? And then that night we get the same thing. Door opens, the claw comes in, and then the kid is like against the wall. You see the silhouette of the monster, and then it morphs into the shadow of the man,
right?
The stepfather. And then it's not like this is a great twist. We all knew what was happening. I think like it's not like they were hiding it from us, but it was just a really, I think like
Visually, it was
visually effective way of revealing that.
and it shows how children see adults. You know, children, and I remember doing this as a kid. You know, you look at things in a particular way so you can handle it.
Uh-huh.
And that's like he could not see his dad or his stepdad as a person, because in a child's mind, a person wouldn't do this. Only a monster is like
Right.
this. And it's very heartbreaking to see, but at the same token, when you see that moment of empowerment, when Walter grabs that paper, because I love how the teacher shows up and he's like, he's going to do something, and he just gets his ass beat too. Like,
Yeah.
I laugh at that each and every time, because it's like, oh, really? You're going to come and save them, big man? This kid is already, the kid, now granted, yes, the story of the monster sounds very far-fetched, but you don't sit there and tell a kid, well, when you feel like really telling me what's going on, we'll talk about it. The kid has already started to open up to you.
Yeah.
But then when that kid grabs that paper and bends, that was Cronenberg-esque.
Yeah. Yeah.
With his arm twisted like that. Yeah. And then he's just like, like that is some great makeup costume. That is so great.
It is incredibly effective for sure. And I think that it helps the film as a whole establish what I think is its central thesis, which is for a community that is like riddled with obviously with issues that are keeping these people from like achieving like their like equality and all of that and equity, right? Yeah. So much of it is we have to take ownership of our own trauma. Mm-hmm. We have to stop shooting each other. We have to fight our own monsters. We can't wait for other people to come in and fight those monsters for us. Right. We have to band together. That's sort of what I think the third story is about, right? Like we have to get together on this whole thing, you know, like that to me is what sort of the thesis of this thing is about. And it starts in the first story with the black cop looking the other way. Mm-hmm. In the second story, we see this young boy, like the teacher can't fight that fight for him. The kid has to find his way out of that trauma. Mm-hmm. And in the third story with the Southern senator, like who is an ex-member, like who allegedly, right, was a member of the KKK, and like all of these old dolls with the spirits of slaves that used to work at this plantation, right, where he lives, like how they all band together and like and kill him. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, this like it's a message that rings through a lot of Spike Lee's films, right? Like as much as the African-American community is a victim of the like white oppressor and the systemic government, there's so many times when that community needs to get out of its own way as well, right? And like,
absolutely. It happens a ton, and you hear a lot of times it's referred to as crabs in a barrel, right? You know, or you get these instances where you've got people that they're more in it for the power and the recognition than they are about service to the community. Yeah. As much as I don't want to give someone any sort of attention or negative recognition, you look at someone like Kanye West and what he's doing, or Candace Owens and what they do, or Senator Tim Scott and what he does. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Right. And that is not to say, right, like a lot of like gun advocates a lot of gun advocates like to point at like black on black crime in cities like Chicago, right, as like a way of or like people that are like the Blue Lives Matter crowd. They like to point out that like disproportionately black people kill other black people more than blah 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 whatever, right? Like this is not a zero-sum game. Like there are a myriad of issues right at play here. One of them definitely is white privileged and privileged white people that are continuing to perpetuate a system that is that treats black people unequally, right? That is absolutely still an issue. But another issue is still like issues within the community itself, right?
the one bit of pushback that I'll give you is there is no such thing as black on black crime, because then there should be white on white crime.
No, I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
this,
yeah. It's just my whole thing is when you talk when we bring up these people, the Blue Lives Matter crowd, and that
right,
try to use Chicago, and they try to say black on black crime. For one, for those that aren't educated, and I'm not saying that to be rude, I'm just
right,
saying it because that's what it is. There, black on black crime is a racist connotation used by the media during the 90s.
yeah,
That's what that was. Here's the thing. You never refer to, no one ever says white on white crime or Asian on Asian crime or Jewish on Jewish crime. They just
right.
don't. Because to them, that sounds stupid. Just like black on black crime does. What they fail to tell you is that criminals commit crimes in their
Their
own
neighborhood,
community,
right,
in their own neighborhoods. That's what is done.
right.
So as soon as that label gets out of our lexicon,
Then
the
we're moving
better.
in the right direction, right?
Correct.
And
But the problem
so,
is that you get some of these black pundits that are brought onto the shows that perpetrate this black on
right,
black crime
your Candace
nonsense.
Owens,
The Candace
etc.
Owenses. Yeah, these are the people that these bigots that, and I will call them bigots, because even if they don't believe they're racist, they're pushing a racist agenda, and
Absolutely,
they're pushing racist propaganda. And what they're doing is that they're bringing in other black people that want that narrative because for whatever reason it just fits for them. So they bring the Candace Owenses, the Herschel Walkers, the Kanye West, the Tim Scotts, the there's another fella, Paris Denard, who will make it see they say it, so it's okay if I
right,
say it. No, it's not. Stop running to your black friend that you think is going to make your racism okay. It's
right.
not.
And I would say that here, like on the surface, like that third story looks like to certain people that would look like a black on black crime story, but it's a gang violence story. It like there's more
Correct.
nuance there. It's the same as
The
Boys
hard
in the Hood.
Yeah, the hardcore convert story is not a story of black on black crime. It is a
Right.
story of gang violence, and it is also a story of basically telling people, look, man, this does not have to be what you're doing.
Right. And I would also argue that if you look at crime rates, right? And we should also acknowledge that crime in and of itself is a human construct, and crime, like there's nothing inherently illegal on the planet. We have all decided that these are the things that are illegal. Does that make sense? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
right, like the concept of legal versus illegal. Now there's a concept of right versus wrong that has like little to do with this, right? But the concept of legal versus illegal is a man-made concept,
right,
and inherent in that concept is the idea that a group of people are in power and they get to decide A, what the laws are, and B, how the laws are enforced. And inside of that is the ability to keep certain groups of people perpetually in trouble and other
hmm
groups of people not, right? Because based on how you enforce and how you write laws. Now, if
right,
you look at, people like to say, well, these neighborhoods have higher crime rates. Like it must be because of X, Y, and Z. The reason why there are higher crime rates in certain places is because there's more poverty in those places and there are fewer opportunities in those places. And when there is more poverty and fewer opportunities, people will resort to crime in order to take care of themselves or their families. Uh,
absolutely.
and
And how are you gonna make someone quote unquote wrong for doing something to protect their families when they do make the attempt to do things the right way?
the right way,
The roadblocks are put in the way. I
right?
mean,
And
when you have the school to prison pipeline going, and you've got young black men, boys and girls, and other races as well, but I'm talking about the black community because I'm in the black community. When you have it where we're being suspended from school more often, our punishments in school are far more harsh to our white counterparts. Now, basically, you're telling us we're bad. You're now
well, yeah, this is a It's a sociological concept called labeling theory that would indicate that when you label someone as something, they tend to exhibit that behavior just because they've been labeled as such. Like if we have decided that this group of people, they are like think about it like this, right? If somebody told you as a small kid that you were a troublemaker, that you heard this every day you went to school, eventually you're just going to be bad because you're catching all the grief for it anyway, right?
Right. So I might as well be what you say I am.
Yeah, and that's why, and this is going to be like one of those like politically correct things, but that's why sociologists are starting to push for a person first labeling system. So instead of calling people felons, you're calling them people with felonies, right? Like that's a very different thing,
It even feels different.
right?
Yeah, and
Because they're a person before they are the thing that they've done, right?
correct. Correct. Like, and that's something that really gets me is people that try to sit there and say, well, back when I was a kid, it was politically correct. Now it's woke.
Right.
Look, treating people with humanity is not, if you say it with disdain, that's a you problem, not the
Yeah.
concept's problem. And when you look at hardcore convert, for one, Rosalind Cash, who plays the head researcher on this,
Mhm.
she's brilliant. This was her final film, I do believe. She now here are my ideas on this final thing here, right? And the story sort of shows this, but I thought about it and it feels like this to me. So the story shows Crazy K driving along. He makes a huge U-turn because he sees a guy that he had issue with. Shoots him, kills him, and then his friends show up and shoot him, and then cops show up and save him. He ends up being in prison in solitary confinement, and a behavioralist shows up and basically offers him he's basically supposed to be getting like a commuted sentence if he takes on this behavior modification.
Yeah.
So, first of all, he's taken to this dank looking dungeon and then put in a cell next to a white supremacist who basically gives him a ton of food for thought.
Yeah.
Retells him, I've killed a lot of, I'm not going to use his verbiage because it's
Right.
disgusting.
Yeah.
But he basically says, I've killed a lot of people in preparation for the great war that's coming, and you would make a great soldier in my army.
Yeah, he's like, we will spare certain black people.
Yeah, and keep them
that
as
are like
slaves.
more on our side, right? Like,
right. And the thing is, and this is something that really gets the character Crazy K, where he even says, all those people that you killed, what color were they?
mm-hmm.
And that really gives him a moment to stop and think. And you know that you need to reevaluate your beliefs and your ideas when a murderous white supremacist says, you're okay with me.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah.
But also, when you really think about it, and I think that this is something that gets lost in translation. It got lost in translation with me at first. But when someone is talking like that, saying that, there are going to be black people that are going to be helpful in a race war and blah, blah, blah. They're not just talking about the people that dress, that quote unquote act white. That's not who they're talking about.
No, I would argue that only some of those people would be actually, you know what I mean? Like
useful. No,
yeah, it's not even like that's not a prerequisite,
No, they're talking about the people that are killing each other for nothing, for material gain, for credit.
What was the uncle's name on the Boondocks?
Uncle Ruckus.
Uncle Ruckus, the Uncle Ruckus types.
Yeah, they're talking about people, like, they're not just talking about people like Uncle Ruckus. They're talking about the people that, like in the Boondocks, where he was like talking about N-word moments, and the dude steps on his shoe, and he was like, oh man, I ain't getting into that. Just walks away. Hey, where you going? Come back here, ruin your life with a split-second decision. Those are the guys that they are the ones that contribute. Because I can't remember who it was that was saying it, but I remember someone was saying how many potential doctors, lawyers, ministers, teachers, whatever, died in gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
And not even just because they were in on it, but were innocent victims. And Crazy K saw that as well when he went to sensory deprivation and he saw all these people that he killed, and he had justifications for everybody, especially even the little girl. I didn't do anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing in my room and a bullet from your gun just happened to come through the wall. You know, or
Yeah.
when the doctor put him on the spinning wheel and had him seeing all that. And she even said, "Oh, you don't like seeing black people killed? What do you think you've been doing?"
Right.
And it's true. The parallels are there.
Yeah.
Like, but then, and now this is what I believe. And we actually saw this at the end of the story where Crazy K is screaming, he don't care, he don't care. And he was in a pool of his own blood all the time. Basically, that doctor was the angel of death giving him one final chance to repent before he
Right.
died.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really deep. That was the deepest story of this movie.
Yeah.
Among, you know, like, that was deep and very
Yeah,
got you
for
thinking.
sure. And it also leads us into the epilogue, which gives us our twist, right?
Yeah, where so we find out that the three guys that murdered Crazy K have been in the funeral home the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they're like, now they think, oh, this guy knows what happened. So they're going to kill him until, you know, but not until he gives them the drugs.
Yeah.
And my favorite line, oh, the shit, oh, the doo-doo, the poopity-pop. That whole part just got like, if you remember, like, did you ever see Deep Cover with Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum?
I don't think so.
So Clarence Williams III is in this movie, is in that movie as well. And there's so basically the basic premise of the scene of the movie is that Lawrence Fishburne goes undercover. He's an undercover cop,
Mm-hmm.
and Clarence Williams III arrests him, and he's trying to talk to him. He goes, "If I see you selling that stuff to my beautiful black babies again, I'm gonna be on you like doo doo." So to hear him say doo doo and poopity pop just makes me laugh so
Right.
hard. So he takes him into the basement and he goes, "Yeah, all the drugs are in the coffins." The guys open the coffins and they're in the coffins,
Yeah.
which was real good. And of course, you know, hey, after you killed Crazy K, some of his buddies got together and came after you, and I guess you didn't make it.
Yeah.
So
And it's the cyclical violence sort of thing, right? Like
violence
it's like
begats violence.
the central argument here is like we have to stop the cycle.
Right. Because, I mean, we even ran into this. You brought up Boys in the Hood. Doughboy and his friends killed the guys that murdered Ricky. 2 weeks later, Doughboy got shot in retaliation. It just keeps going.
Yeah. Somebody has to be the first one to stop.
Right. And then, of course, one of my favorites, you know, how are we dead if we in a funeral home talking to you? Oh, man, so great. This ain't no funeral home. It ain't the Terradome. Neither. Welcome to hell, motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean that's
so good. Like that's chilling.
It's great, and it's also like something that I am always afraid of. Like, am I dead right now? And is this part of my life just preparing me to wake up on the other side?
Right. So doing a podcast with me means you're dead and preparing to.
That means that like this. So like I have this working theory that when we die, if our brain remains active, it starts to like prepare us for self-acknowledgement that we have died. And so in order to do that, it plays back memories from our life, or it like makes new memories with people that we trust and love.
Nice.
In order for those people to help like segue us into the afterlife, right?
Oh, that is it. I like that. Don't worry, Shane. I'm not the one that's going to lead you to the afterlife.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good.
Like honestly, if now granted, I do have a pretty good sense of direction. Unfortunately,
we would get lost.
We would get lost because even though I have a great sense of direction, my short-term memory isn't always super great. So I'm like, where the hell are we supposed to be going again?
Shit,
And
man,
then-
like you might be the one, like this might be the afterlife, but you just forgot.
Yeah, pretty much.
So like this is like I'm stuck in limbo for this is why people get stuck in limbo because they're like spirit guides forget that they're supposed to be doing something.
Yeah. Shit. What was I supposed to do again? Oh, man. You were supposed to be in heaven like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
My bad,
Also,
dog.
I think that maybe Mr. Sims holds on to dead bodies too long.
Yeah. But
Like
I mean,
we need to start like putting some of these dudes in the ground, you know?
yeah, but I mean, I think he's
But it
just
is
sort
hell,
of,
motherfucker. So I guess.
yeah. Now, one bit of cinematography that I really appreciated, and I didn't notice until this most recent watch through,
Yeah.
is that when they get into the basement, he starts to sweat.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, that one slipped by me too. But again, it was something that I wasn't aware of until the end. You know,
Right. And then,
foreshadowing is only foreshadowing in hindsight.
right. but it's like, after watching it, it's like, wow, why is he getting sweaty all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's cool.
And I'll tell you what, man. If the devil is Clarence Williams III or Keith David,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I want to go there.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, if hell was going to be sort of like, did you ever play Saints Row Gat Out of Hell?
No, yeah, maybe a little bit, but not a ton.
Like, if that's what hell's going to be like, as long as I'm the lead character, I guess I'm okay.
Right. Right.
But the problem is, how likely am I going to be the lead character of anything like that? It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with someone, and I was like, man, I wish I could go to the Marvel 616 or one of the Marvel universes.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, nah, that'd be a waste. And they're like,
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
that?
you would still just be some dude. Like
I would just be some dude. Like, oh wow, there's superheroes around.
Right.
Wow,
I feel
wish
like
I
that
were
would
a
be
superhero.
awful. Like honestly, it would be awful to live in that world.
It really would, because now your insurance premiums are going through the roof because Steve Rogers, freaking something just happened to happen on your street.
Yeah.
And Steve Rogers was there, and your house just happens to be collateral damage. Man, you try to get homeowners insurance, and it's like, man, I cannot afford this shit. Like, I would seriously be out on the streets. Like, I would probably be a villain asking for the government to tax the Avengers.
Yeah. Well, they should.
Oh, they should
right?
Absolutely. Hey, if you're going to work with autonomy.
No, well, that's how you get the boys, right? Because then they're going to have to become a for-profit organization.
Right. And my whole thing is like, look, man, like I like, as much as I love Luke Cage, I'm like, look, dude, you've begotten a lot of gang violence and folks is getting shot up. I've had to replace 5 sets of tires over your ass.
Right.
Brother, tires ain't free.
Right. I got spider webs on my door. Like,
you know who's going to clean this shit up?
Yeah, like that's the story that I want. Like, give me like just some dude that lives in that universe that's just like trying to keep his house together and just periodically like shit's going on outside. Like somebody, like his wife is like, what is going on out there? And he's like, oh, you know, the fucking Avengers are at it again. Like, he's just like trying to watch Monday Night Football, but out in the street, like fucking Spider-Man's fighting rhinoceros or something like.
Oh man, like he's like, oh man, some dude is getting ready to walk to his car. Payday's tomorrow. One more car payment. This car is mine. My credit score is perfect. Nothing could go wrong. And then next thing you know, here comes Wolverine flying out of nowhere because the Blob just sent him flying, and he just crushes the car. No!
Yep. Absolutely.
He finally got rid of his last credit card, but he doesn't have the cash equity to get it fixed.
Yeah, Thanos snaps, and all of a sudden, like, you just see this one old, like, middle-aged cop, and I was just one day from retirement. As he, like, blows away in the wind.
Oh, some dude is on his way to pick up his kid from, like, preschool, and as he goes, hey, champ, how was your...
Right.
Just drops the kid to the ground. Kid's like... Kid's just like... The kid ends up being, like...
Can we talk about how their clothes went with them, too?
Seriously, man. Like, for real?
Like, how... Like, when they restored all of those people, how were they not all just naked?
Well, because... That's a good question. I mean...
And why were the streets not littered with clothing? Like in
Night of the Comet. Like, people were turned to dust. Their clothes and their shoes were left in the streets.
I mean, it was really considerate of him to like
Take their clothes with them.
to let them take their clothes with them, but I just don't think that that's how that works, because he said half of the universe is living things.
Yeah, clothes are not living. Now, well, what if they're wearing...
I mean, if they're wearing a cotton T-shirt and it's still attached to the plant, then maybe, but
it's not.
It's not.
So, yeah, so the clothes should be there.
The clothes should be there.
That's just more of that PG-13 bill crap of Marvel.
I know. Let me get like this is the opportunity for this. This ain't the Avengers Triple X to get it right.
Oh my god! I can just imagine people just coming back out of nowhere, and it's like the dead of winter, and it's like, oh my god, it's cold. Why the hell am I naked? It's like 10 degrees below zero. What the?
The Triple X Avengers, the bend over game.
Bend over game. Oh god, Hulk's got to carry naked, like a whole bunch of naked people someplace, and it's just like, ugh, this is uncomfortable.
Infinity Wargy.
Infinity Orgy.
All right.
Now that's an orgy.
From the Hood was made on a $6 million budget. It grossed $11.8 million at the box office, currently sporting a 58% on the tomato meter, but that's only based on 24 reviews because, again, older movies just don't have as much of a presence online. 68% audience score. Anything else you would like to say before we bring in Bartender Smiley?
Yeah, Tales from the Hood 2 has a 78% on the tomato meter, but that's only 9 reviews with a 26% audience score, which Tales from the Hood 2 is very campy. Tales from the Hood 2 loses a lot of the scary and jumps right into the... Tales from the Hood 2 is very uneven because you have one of the stories that's the most poignant that I really wanted to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost in the vein of the Clarence story, where it's there's a black guy who's into politics, and I think he's a city councilman, and he's working with the racist mayor to help him to become governor. And if he helps him become governor, he's going to become mayor. And the guy's married to a white woman who's pregnant. She's lost her last 2 kids. And his wife is talking about how she's seeing a young black boy who she feels is killing their kid.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom insinuates that among the things that her son is involved in is suppressing black votes. What we find out is the young black boy that is visiting his wife is actually Emmett Till.
Mm.
And Emmett Till is making the decision to not give his life. Because the way the story goes is that since Emmett Till decided he was going to live, the civil rights movement never gets kickstarted. Because the death of Emmett Till and his mother making the decision to have his funeral open casket is what really gave the civil rights movement a kick in the ass.
Huh, that's really interesting.
So, and then of course the black guy in question, he's not only sees Emmett Till, but Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, the little girls from the church bombing, and all these people who gave their lives knowingly and unknowingly in the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And so that story is probably among the most thought-provoking stories. Yeah. There's one where a white girl wants a gollywog doll, which is another racist caricature, and it's a stupid story. Other story of 2 guys that are date rape predators online, and some vampires catch them and make them the prey. Like basically a lot of the stories in that up until that Emmett Till story are just silly. Uneven. Right. The third movie is a much more superior product where it tells a story. You remember that knockout game that was really, really big in the news for a while? Where people would walk up to people. There's a story based on that where a guy's doing that, and he is cursed by a voodoo woman to
Uh-huh.
walk a mile in the shoes of his victim. Well, what he didn't realize is that one of his victims died. So everything he's experiencing from his victim's point of view. And honestly, if you really feel inclined to watch some of these movies that we talk about, all three Tales from the Hood movies are on Peacock. I definitely suggest you give them a watch. The second one is, if you're a completionist like I am, watch the second one. If you're not, you can kind of go without it. I would definitely
Well,
suggest you
that's the
watch the
beauty of the
first.
anthology thing, right? 'Cause you could
Exactly.
even watch the second one and just skip to the Emmett Till story.
Exactly. But the first and third movies, I think, are the highest of high quality. We even get Lynn Winfield in one of the stories in part 3,
Hmm.
which is an amazing tale. And I'm trying to think, there's one more. The overarching story is also a very, very good one as well.
Yeah.
So, but if you're a fan of black cinema, check it out, man.
All right. Well, here's Bartender Smiley, and then we will rate Tales from the Hood 1.
Okay.
The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So, what can I get you?
Do you want to go first on this, Mr.
Yeah,
Tan?
sure. The original Tales from the Hood. It's funny. It has scary moments. A lot of social commentary. It's definitely a fun watch if you've got an hour and 37 minutes to kill. I'd definitely say give it a whirl because it never feels overlong. It never feels like it's dragging. And that's, once again, the beauty of the anthology. The stories, they get you in, they get you out, you move on. However, if you're squeamish, it's definitely a trigger warning. If you have been a victim of domestic violence, the story of Boys Do Get Bruised, that's a trigger warning for you right there. A lot of these stories are going to have a bit of a trigger warning for certain things, like if you've been a victim of police brutality and so forth. But they are worth watching. They're a little bit cheesy for the times, but they are a fun watch. I'll give this film a 1-shot rating. It does what it sets out to do. It keeps you entertained. It's also very, very thought-provoking. The final story is absolutely brilliant, and it doesn't hide from the commentary that it's giving us.
Yeah, I agree. I almost think I could have done with less of the doll story and more of everything else.
Yeah, the doll story, the animation
It's the
of that.
weakness, I think.
That story wastes some great actors with Corbin Burnson and
Mhm.
what I can't remember. I can never remember the guy's name. Let me look it up here real quick. Roger Guinevere Smith.
Yeah.
Those two guys are amazing. Corbin Burnson and Roger Smith are amazing actors. That story, honestly, I think that if you would have put 2 other actors in those roles,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe, but I think the problem with that story is that it's a little bit too hand-fisted. It's way,
Yeah, that to me, that's how I felt. It like that one was almost like too on the nose.
and and I think that now it's very scary in the fact with the dolls,
Yeah.
but
If there's
it's
one that I could have done without, it's that
it
one.
could have been, yeah, I could have done without that one and add a few more minutes to
beef
each
up.
game.
Yeah, like give us a little more character development or something in the other ones. So yeah,
Right.
so I'm with you. Like a 1-shot feels about right because it is very good, but like that's the only story that I had a hard time. Like I wanted to like sort of check out during that one.
Yeah, that's the one that feels like it kind of drags, and I really feel like a lot of the I some of these films when you've got white actors playing racist characters,
Yeah.
it's got to be hard for them
Yeah.
to say some of those things. Because when I was in West Side Story in high school, and I was a jet, and the scene, the assault of Anita scene, I cried after that. That was hard to be a part of.
Right.
So, I mean, Corbin Burnson's it's nothing even against his performance, because his performance is good. It's just the story is just way on the nose. It's just way too there.
Yeah, I agree. One shot for me. Next week, Mr. Tan, we'll get into Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
This is the movie you have been waiting for a long
It's
time.
Halloween, it's Halloween, it's time for scares, it's time for screams. It's Halloween, it's Halloween. That's not even the song. I just made that up.
Oh.
That's a different song. That's a terrible song called no, it's the Silver Shamrock is the song that is in Halloween 3. No, there's this shitty band, like this hippie band. Can't remember the name of it, but the name of the band. But they do this like they were like the original Rebecca Black, that Friday, that song. Like it was like a self-produced album. Their dad like made it. It's like 3 sisters, and it is
gotcha.
just like it's rugged. Like just like the drums are shitty. They're offbeat. Like the whole thing is just bad. But they wrote this like Halloween anthem.
Oh god,
it's also so weird. But anyway, yeah. So Halloween 3 next week, and then we'll end up October. We'll wrap things up with Insidious.
That'll be my first time. Actually, you know, both of these movies. See, I haven't seen Halloween 3: Season of the Witch since it was brand new on HBO when I was a kid.
Yeah. So I'm
this is
excited
going
to
to be
revisit
fun.
both of these.
I've never seen Insidious. So
yeah, exciting stuff. Yeah, be sure you're rating, subscribing, reviewing, etc. And
yada 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 yakety schmackety.
Yeah, and we will we'll be back here next week with Season of the Witch. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah.
Take a trip with us to Nilbog. Just promise not to drink the goo.
Oh my god!
If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will send a phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow. Whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of 2. We're the Plotaholics, ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.